What's up, family? This is your man, not your boy, Go Black to Africa. All right, so we are here at a museum, and I have a tour guide with me. She's going to introduce herself. So, my sister, please introduce yourself, and please tell the people where are we.
We are on a beautiful, beautiful island within the Caribbean called Curacao at the southwestern part of the island. We are at a museum called Museum Casipali Maishi, and my name is Damaris. I'll be your guide today.
All righty then. So we'll get started right here, and so I'm gonna let you go ahead and guide me along.
All right, so what we do basically at this museum is we show a little bit of the lives of the people post abolition of slavery. And
Okay.
abolition happened in 1863, and it was so that right after the abolition, of course, you couldn't book a ticket and go live happily ever after in Africa. So you had to stay here and make ends meet. So as we walk today, I'm going to show you how they solved basic questions such as I need a house, but we don't have any money, no Home Depot here on the island. So how are we going to create our house? What am I going to eat? How am I going to clothe myself? So those are type of questions that we'll answer together today.
Okay. All right.
Let's start with this piece of land where we're standing. It was so that right after the abolition, you got this as a sort of gift from your former slave owner, but it wasn't completely a gift though, because you still had to pay for it. But how? By planting fruits and vegetables. So they were doing just that, planting, and then they saw that if you don't have a fence, goats can walk right in, and if we place goats with fruits and vegetables, what typically happens? They eat them up. So they decided, no, let's create a fence. But here, yet another challenge for them because we don't have a lot of wood in abundance. But what we do have is cactus. So it had to be done from cactus, and I'm going to show you as well today how we can create such a thing. Number one, we start off by chopping down a piece of cactus like you can see right over here. But it has the spine, so I cannot really grab it with my bare hands. And for that purpose, they designed these two over here. In our native language, we call it the chi and the cha, but I also refer to it as the woman and the man. And guess which one does all of the work?
The woman.
The woman, of course. So I'm going to show you how the woman goes about it. You grab the woman, you place her behind the cactus like so. Then the man, just like the laws of nature, will have to insert himself, and voila, you can lift up your piece of cactus. Once lifted, you can carry it, bring it over to this stretcher over here. You can place a whole bunch on top of this one, then you bring it over to your yard, dig a hole of about 30-35 centimeters deep, insert each one individually. You water them, of course, and then within a week or so, they will start grabbing roots again and growing straight up. So that is basically the science behind the cactus fence.
All righty.
Right next to it, if you continue walking with me, you can see the rooster over there. We always place a chicken house at the left hand side of our homes here on the island because we use those type of roosters to cast away bad energy. The type is Dutch bantams, and we don't touch them. We don't eat them either. Only if the chickens lay eggs, sometimes we eat off those eggs. But we don't touch them because they ward off all types of negative energy from your house. Same thing we do with the skull of the donkey over there, especially for bad spirits. And if you look around the house, you can see how we attract good things because everything needs to be in balance, right? The good and the bad, just like the Chinese yin and yang, we have these to cast away bad energy. And if you look around the house, you can see the Aloe Vera barbadensis Miller plant, and that's how we attract good things because the Egyptians call it the plant of eternity. It does so much things for your health, your skin conditions. Here, you use it literally for everything. So that's why we place it all over as well to attract everything that is good towards our homes.
The aloe vera, you said, do they also use it for medicinal purposes?
Yeah, especially for medicinal purposes. We use it here on the island. You can detoxify with it and do different things. So that's why it's widely spread on the island as well, because we use it to cure ourselves, and sometimes we don't even go to the doctor no more. We go to our yards and use different type of herbs to cure different illnesses that we have.
Nice.
Right now I would like to show you about this over here. It's a bread oven. We call it a forno di calchi here on the island. Good food is very, very important for us here on the island. We like soup and bread, especially on Sundays. And there's this type of bread that we like so much that we created this oven just for that one type of bread. We call it pangsera, and I'm gonna show you right now how we create the bread as well. We start off with the tree on top of our heads right here. We call it the inju, the mesquite. It's very energy dense, so we insert it in here. You set it on fire, it will burn down and eventually turn into charcoal. But then if my oven is completely filled up with charcoal, it's a little bit difficult for me to insert the bread. So I need to clean it up first, and for that, of course, they had a broom, but it looked like this. It's created out of the white sage herb, the one that we use nowadays for smudging. You clean up your oven, then it's time for you to insert your bread. We use this one. It's just like a pizza shower. We call a hapa. You place your bread on top. You place it in the oven, close the door, and then within 10 to 15 minutes each day you would get your bread ready. And once it's done, it's like one of the best qualities of bread that you will ever try.
And what's the name of the bread?
Pancera.
Alrighty.
Okay. Right next to it, if you continue walking with me, you can see the charcoal oven. Nowadays we buy it in like a bag from the grocery store, but it started like this. So basically 3 layers. The first layer is just stones, fire stones. On top of it, the mesquite wood again, and then a pile of sand. Of course, I need to leave 2 openings for ventilation, one at the rear and one at the front. Then I set it on fire, it will burn down, sink in, and eventually I just close off the doors and I get my charcoal. Nowadays, we have stove tops. It's quite easy, but back in the day, all of this process had to continuously be done so you could get to your charcoal so you can do your cooking. Okay? Walking on down, we have 2 other constructions. To my left hand side, we have the ramada, and then the warda over here. We use them together whenever we have to plant. So let's say we just ate a pumpkin, we have the seeds left over. We cannot really plant them right away, otherwise they won't grow. So we need to let them dry up first. That's why we use the ramada here. We place the seeds on top. The sun will dry them up for us, and once dried, it's time for us to place the seeds in a glass bottle inside of the water, which is like a storage place. And we do it always in glass bottles because birds cannot reach it, and then you keep it safe until the rainy season comes. And then next to it, another problem post-abolition was how do you dry your clothes? Nowadays we have like the dryers, or at least you have somewhere to hang it up. But back in the day, they didn't have neither of those 2 options. So they had to be really creative, and the solution they found was this over here. Another cactus fence, but the idea this time is that I grab my piece of clothing after the laundry, I throw it over here, and once removed, you can see that I can perfectly put it on. It won't have any type of tiny holes or anything. It will stay intact. And after drying up your clothing, you could also use this as a conservation spot for your meat, because keep in mind they didn't have no fridge back in the day, so they needed to store the leftover meat that they had. Let's say you killed a goat, you ate half of it with your family. The rest you could salt from both ways. You throw it over here, and that's how basically you create salted meat, or beef jerky they would call it as well in English. All right. Next to it, walk with me so you can see the restroom that they have. The fencing was a little bit higher though for your own privacy. You had to go back there. You can see like a bench with a hole right in the midst of it. You had to come with your own bucket, place it underneath, sit, do whatever you had to do, and then take it out to the bushes, throw it away, and then come place it here again so the next person could use it as well. So this is basically how the toilet started here on the island. Right where I'm standing right now, we call this a limestone oven or a chalk oven, and we use it to create a very special type of thing, which I'm going to share with you right now. It's created out of 3 layers. Layer number 1 is just coral stones. Then we have dimensional tree. On top of it, more coral stones, dead trunks of trees. We set it on fire. It will burn down and turn into like a white type of powder. And that powder we mix with the gel of the aloe vera plant. And as an end result, you can paint your houses. But this today is no longer allowed because of course coral stones are houses of fishes and all type of marine life. Milk tins, they stored right over here. You didn't have a fridge like I mentioned before, so you had to place all of your milk in here, and you had some of the tins for oils as well. Let me just grab these. We made it first 10 minutes because I think I need to get some stuff out.
Almost.
If you can pause it. So nowadays to carry water or to get to water is quite easy for us. We just turn on the faucet and a quick flick of the wrist. But back in the day, you had to imagine that these people would have to walk like 45 minutes to reach a water well. And once you reach, you had to carry your water home. And if I walked 45 minutes to reach a water well, of course, when I reach, I'm going to try to be as efficient as possible. I'm not just going to take 1 bucket. So I'm going to take perhaps 2 in my hands and 1 on top of my head as well. So I'm going to show you today how that is done. I have a bun, but I think it's possible. So you use these. These are just pieces of clothing that you can wrap up. You put it on top of your head, and then you grab your bucket of water. You have to. Okay, so nowadays if you need water, of course it's quite simple because you just turn on the faucet, a flick of the wrist, and you're done. But back in the day, you have to imagine you had to walk like 45 minutes to reach a water well. And once you reach, you would try to be as efficient as possible. So let's say if I reach there, I'm not just going to take one bucket back to my home. I would take like two in my hands and then one on top of my head. So to make the process of carrying water on top of your head easier, they created this system over here, just pieces of clothing that I would wrap around each other. Then I need to place it on top of my head, like so. It gives extra support. And once I have this, I go to my water well, grab my bucket of water, I place it on top of my head. Then slowly, as I find balance, I take my hands down to carry two more buckets of water, and then I could start walk back and forth towards my home. But what happens if I stumble?
You lose your water.
Exactly, and I have the chance of getting soaking wet as well. So the women here on the island thought to start using their hips as they walked to give them extra balance. And that's why some people say that especially, black women walk a little bit sexy because it had to do with balancing water going from the water well. And right now, I want to see you do it too.
Well, we'll get to that because I'll hold
I
that.
can film you.
That's okay. We'll get around maybe down the road.
So we continue then.
Yeah.
Once you have water, you could continue with different other household chores like doing the laundry, and for that you had to use this one over here. You might be quite familiar. This is what we call a washboard. We started off with just the wooden version that you can see over there though, and then we stepped over to sink, and here we have glass. It's quite a simple process of scrubbing up and down. You have your piece of clothing, of course, a little bit of blue soap, and then you have to scrub up and down until you remove the dirt out of your clothing piece. But here on the island, the chore of doing the laundry was done by women, so they came together in big groups. The neighborhood women would come do the laundry together, and as they did the laundry, they had a lot of songs as well. So I think it's only fair that I sing one of the songs for you right now, and it goes like this. Washikulaba kinopolaba ya kalimambe ya kalimambe ya Tobokulaba kinopolaba ya kalimambe ya kalimambe ya. And every time at each ya part, you would know that, hey, I need to scrub down or press down just a tad bit harder so I can remove the dirt out of my clothing piece as well. This is actually a song that says that a washboard that washes with me can be washing with you as well. So in the context from woman to woman, it would be my washboard. It's my man. Keep your hands. Okay? So you can see how they communicated creatively as well. Instead of approaching someone directly and saying something, you do it in group setting, and the one that's doing something wrong would know and adapt or change whatever they're doing. And this is something that we still do here on the island, especially during the December times. We have like a lot of these type of songs that we call the tambu. Okay? Right now, keep on walking with me. We're going to see Tula. What we're seeing here is a sculpture of Tula, and Tula was the leader of the biggest rebellion that the island ever knew of. It took place in 1795, and it came about because Tula was a slave that taught himself how to read and write, and one day he found out that the slave in the French colonies in Haiti got their freedom. So he was wondering, if he was black and they're black as well, how come are they free and he's still a slave? So he decided to walk up to his slave owner, basically demanding his freedom. Of course, he didn't quite get it. So that's why the rebellion that he created in 1795. To their defense, I would have to say that they had things like sticks and stones and those type of things. And the other side, of course, had weapons. So when things got really violent, we all know how the story ended. But we still place Tula here as an example of different things because we want to share his story as number one. But we also want to help locals realize, or black people in general, to realize that there's nothing wrong with the skin color that we have, with the texture of our hair, the proportions of our bodies. But we also want to convey the message that's about time to let go of these, especially the mental chains that we still carry, like complexity of inferiority whenever we see a white people, or fear, because because we deal with that a lot as well. Fear of being ourselves, or fear of expressing ourselves just as we are. So that's why we place the quote on top of here saying, "My soul is still alive," and chain me in the words of Tula, which should mean that this sentiment over here will only and truly be free the day that we as local or as black people learn how to accept ourselves, the day that we're ready to work with each other first and then with other nationalities so all of us can go forward.
I got a question on that. So, do you see in this new generation from your youth, are they embracing the African culture, or are they more or less embracing more of the Holland, European kind of mentality, way of life?
You see both. You see both, and in my experience, if I can talk about myself, it started with educating myself and getting in touch with people that had more knowledge for me to embrace. And the knowledge that I had the pleasure to receive is not widely spread for everybody. So it takes a lot of time actually for people to get to those realizations. But I would say the two things that you stated, you see both of them here on the island. I would like to see it go a little bit faster though. So that's why as a young woman I'm working in a museum today as well. So the story can be told creatively and interactively and it reaches more people. I think that is exactly one of the reasons why the people stay like they are, because the stories, we that have it, we don't share it. So we should share whatever we know so other people can be liberated as well, so they can start decolonizing their minds.
Alrighty.
I don't know if I answer your question completely. Do you feel like so?
Of course.
Okay, so now I walk with you to a pilon. A pilon is quite interesting because it's just the trunk of a tree in which we mash up corn. To get to cornmeal, you had to start here always. You place your harvested corn in here, and then we had to break it down into smaller chunks, and once broken, you had to take it to that green table over there where you had to grind it until it turned into the flour consistency that you wanted. But here again at the pilon, it was a chore done by women, and by now we know when women come together to work here on the island, what do? We sing. So this time it's going to be a song again, but I'm not going to be singing all by myself. You're going to have to help me a little bit as well. Okay? It's going to be quite easy. I'm going to say something and then you have to reply with a loud ha. That's it. You think you can do that?
Of course.
All right, let's try it. 1, 2, 3. Bati pilang.
Ha!
Sawala pilang.
Ha!
Bati.
Ha!
Bati pilang.
Ha!
Sawala pilang.
Ha!
Bati.
Ha!
Bati.
Ha!
All right, awesome. So basically you would have like 3 women together and interchanging this, because we call it a manga, and you mash up together, so it shows teamwork as well. Right now I'm going to open the house for you so you can get a sneak peek as well about how it looks like. This is the original one. It's over 132 years old, so it's going to be quite interesting as well to see it. All right. I'm going to open the windows for you. Like I said, 132 years old, also recognized by the local UNESCO committee as one of the most important heritage spots here on the island. And the idea is that the roof, if you can look at it, is not original now, but back in the day it was created out of 4 layers of these cornices, which you can see as protection against the elements. The walls were created out of woven branches of trees, and on top of that they placed this over here. This is what we call kakaboo, which is a cow manure. And the interesting thing about it is that it has certain toxic gases within it, and because of these gases you won't ever find any type of bugs, mosquitoes, insects, or whatever within the house. Now that we know about the roof and the walls of the house, let's see a little bit more about the structure, the infrastructure itself. Quite simple. You had 2 rooms. The bigger room is where we're standing right now, their living room, and then you had the master bedroom behind there as well. But since the bigger room was your living room, you also had to use it for different other things. So you can see they stored their YouTube over here. So to play music, you had this one, it's called the Gramophone. If you wanted to make a call, you would have this as well. So the WhatsApp that we have nowadays started like this for them. You had to blow in here, it would create different sounds, and you had to learn the sound so you could stay updated with what was going on. And then for people with African heritage, an altar is always quite interesting because they always give honor to the elders that went on before them. And in their cases, they were religious as well. So they had like an image of Virgin Mary, I think, and with Jesus.